He followed me from a gas station at 10:30 on a Sunday night, kept 2 car lengths back the entire time, close enough to track me, far enough to argue coincidence. He had done this before. I could tell by the precision of it. I'm 26. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and this happened about a year ago. I've told this story to the police and to my closest friends, and I'm telling it again because recognizing what I recognized is what kept me safe, and I want other people to be able to recognize it. It was a Sunday night in January, around 10:30. I was coming back from my parents' place about an hour's drive away, and I stopped at a gas station to fill up. Busy intersection, good lighting, the kind of stop you make without thinking twice. There was one other car at the pumps when I pulled in. A man was standing outside it, not fueling, just standing, phone in hand. I noticed him and moved on. You notice people, that's normal. I finished filling up, went inside for a bottle of water, came back out. He'd moved to the pump directly next to mine. Still not fueling. And when I looked at him more carefully, I noticed his phone screen was dark. He wasn't looking at his phone. He was holding it down at his side, and he was looking at me. I got in my car and left. He pulled out right behind me. Main road, same direction. Probably a coincidence. I told myself all of that. Then he was still there at the second light. Still there at the third. And then I came to the turn onto my street, a residential street with no particular reason to turn onto it unless you lived there, and he turned too. And something in my body understood before my brain caught up. My hands went tight on the wheel. My stomach dropped in a way that felt like physics, and I drove straight past my house. No brake, no signal, no hesitation. Drove to the end of the street and turned, and he followed me around the corner. I called 911. I stayed on the line for 14 minutes, kept the car moving, never stopped. The entire time he maintained exactly 2 car lengths. Not close enough that he couldn't deny it if he had to. Not far enough that he lost me. That gap was precise. That gap had been calibrated. You don't calibrate a gap like that without practice. He'd done this to other people. The dispatcher kept me calm and got a cruiser to me. The moment the police got behind him, he turned off the road immediately. They pulled him over 2 blocks away, suspended license. The suspension was connected to a prior incident the officer wouldn't specify. When the follow-up officer called me the next day, she mentioned they'd received complaints about that vehicle before. Nothing that had led to charges, nothing actionable. Just a pattern that kept showing up in reports and going nowhere. They couldn't charge him with anything from that night. Following someone on a public road is not a crime in Tennessee. He still lives in my city. I don't know where. I know what his car looks like. I memorized it during those 14 minutes. I check my mirrors on every turn now, a low-level constant sweep that I didn't do before. It's not panic. It's more like a scar that changed the shape of how I move through the world. I keep 911 in my recent calls. I keep a note on my phone with his license plate. That is what he took from me, that constant alertness, that cost. And he didn't spend a single night in a cell. He'd been photographing my building for 5 weeks before he ever contacted me. When he finally reached out, it was a perfectly normal professional email. I replied within the hour. I'm 30. I'm in Edinburgh, Scotland, and this happened over about 3 months, 2 years ago. I run a freelance illustration business. I have a website, a contact form, and Instagram. You have to be findable in this industry. That visibility is the whole point. The first email came in February. a logo commission inquiry. Reasonable brief, reasonable budget, polite and professional. We went back and forth a few times, and then he went quiet. I assumed he'd gone elsewhere. It happens constantly. I moved on. Second email came in late March. Different name, but the sentence rhythm was identical. The way someone spaces their thoughts, the particular phrases they reach for. I noticed and dismissed it. Lots of people write similarly enough. Third email, about 3 weeks after that. Same style again, different project. This time I was fairly sure it was the same person. I replied once to be professional and then let it go. The fourth email had my home address in the subject line, nothing in the body. The subject field, my full flat address in Edinburgh, which is not on my website, not linked to any public profile, not findable through any professional channel I maintain. I read it twice because I thought I'd misread it. I hadn't. I filed a police report that afternoon. The officer was understanding and flagged the report, but explained that a single email was difficult to act on without further escalation. I understood. I went home and checked every lock. The fifth email arrived 4 days later, an attached photo. My building's front entrance, taken from street level, timestamped at 11:52 p.m. The sixth email arrived the following week. Another photo, this one taken from the fire escape outside my kitchen window. I'm on the 3rd floor. The fire escape is not accessible from the street. It's accessible from the fire escape itself, which means he had been on it. That's when I stopped being frightened and started being furious. And that's when the police started treating it very differently. They found him within the week. 43 years old, no professional connection to illustration or design of any kind, no reason to have ever contacted my business. His phone and laptop contained photos of my building going back 5 weeks before his first email. He had started watching before he introduced himself. He'd been charged before, a previous restraining order, different city, different woman. The outcome of his case makes me too angry to discuss, so I'll leave it there. I rebuilt my entire online presence after this. New email address through a privacy relay, separate contact system with no identifying information, a doorbell camera, a dog, actually a big one. I moved flats. But here's what I can't shake. That first email was genuinely, completely normal. I read it and thought, potential client. Replied the same day. My name is in his inbox, with my professional greeting and my polite availability. It's been there for 2 years. You can't unreply to an email. Some contacts don't let go. My little sister spotted him first. She was 15. She leaned over in the cereal aisle and told me the man at the far end had been looking at us for a while. By the time we'd moved to the 3rd different aisle and he was already there waiting, I knew exactly what was happening. I'm 22, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I was 18 when this happened, which means my sister was 15. I'm sharing this because she's the reason it ended the way it did, and I think she deserves to have people know that. Saturday afternoon, Walmart, busy and ordinary, midday. We'd driven ourselves. I'd had my license for about 4 months, just picking up things for the house. My sister saw him first in the cereal aisle. Quietly told me the man at the end of the aisle had been watching us. I looked, late 40s maybe, standing with a cart, facing our direction. Not shopping, just standing there with the specific stillness of someone who has decided to stay in one place. I steered us to a different aisle without saying anything. You move, you don't confront, you don't make eye contact. I'd heard that enough times to make it instinct. He was in the next aisle within 2 minutes. I moved us again. Health and beauty, far corner of the store, opposite end from where we'd been. I turned down the aisle and checked the far end before I even started walking down it. He came around the end cap within 90 seconds. At that point, I stopped pretending I was uncertain. I pulled my phone out and called my mom on speaker, speaking clearly and loudly about exactly where we were in the store, how we'd gotten there, what we were doing. I watched him as I talked. He drifted back, still in the area, still visible, but further away, not gone. I steered us to the customer service desk. I kept my voice low and I described him to the woman behind the counter. And I told her we were being followed, and I asked her to call security without making it obvious. She was incredible. Didn't react visibly at all, just nodded once and reached for her radio. Security found him less than 3 minutes later. And this is the part that matters. The part that tells you everything about what he was actually doing when security approached him. He walked directly out of the store. No argument. No, I'm just shopping. No attempt to explain himself or claim innocence. He turned and left immediately and cleanly, like someone who has a practiced exit. His cart was empty. He hadn't picked up a single item in however long he'd been in that building. Not one. He was never there to shop. We waited at customer service for 25 minutes until my mom got there. Security walked us out to her car. We didn't go to the parking lot alone. I've thought a lot about what would have happened if we'd just gone to the car, if I hadn't steered us inside and to a desk and asked for help, if my sister hadn't said something in that first aisle. She was 15, and she trusted what she felt instead of talking herself out of it. She said something. Instead of going quiet because she didn't want to seem like she was making a fuss. That instinct, trusting it, saying it out loud, is the reason we walked to my mother's car. If something feels wrong in a public space, you are allowed to act on it. You're allowed to be loud. You're allowed to go to a desk and ask for help and not care how it looks. Do not go to the parking lot alone, please. That's all. Don't do it. He invented a daughter to get me into the parking lot. When that didn't work, he sat down across from me with nothing in his hands and tried again. He had never intended to sell me anything. I'm 27. I'm in Austin, Texas, and this happened 3 years ago when I was trying to pick up a used camera for a film course I was taking. I'd bought and sold stuff online a dozen times before without anything going wrong. This one had a particular feeling from the very first message, a friendliness that was working slightly too hard, and I almost ignored it. Camera listed at a fair price, I messaged him. He came back within minutes, very eager, lots of exclamation marks, quick to call me by name. I told myself, enthusiastic seller. We agreed to meet at a Starbucks. My choice, I made it deliberately, and he didn't push back, which I took as a good sign. I texted a friend where I was going and who I was meeting, like I always do. About 5 minutes before we were supposed to meet, he texts to say the Starbucks is too crowded. Could we move to the parking garage attached to the mall 2 blocks down? Quieter, easier to see the camera in natural light, he said. I said I preferred to stay indoors. He said his daughter was with him, and she got overwhelmed by crowds. Could I please just come to the lot? It would only take 2 minutes. I said I preferred to stay at the Starbucks. Final answer. And if that didn't work for him, we could reschedule. 4 minutes of silence. Then, okay, I'll come in. He arrived alone. No daughter. No camera bag, no case. Nothing in either hand. He sat down across from me, and the first thing I clocked was his hands, both flat on the table, empty. He said he'd left the camera in his car. Could I just come out to the lot really quickly? I said, go ahead and get it. I'll wait here. He looked at me for a long moment. Not angry, assessing, like he was running through his remaining options. Then he said he had to take a call, excused himself, and walked out. 15 minutes. He didn't come back. The number went straight to voicemail when I tried it. The listing disappeared from the site that same evening. I went to the police. They told me there had been several complaints with the same number and physical description over the past few months. Always a camera or electronics listing. Always a request to meet in a parking lot. Always a daughter mentioned. None of the complaints had led to charges. There was no camera. There was never a camera. He was using listings to get women alone in parking structures. The daughter was a sympathy play. He brought a child into it specifically to make you feel like saying no was unkind. That's deliberate. That's studied. I got out of it by saying no twice and meaning it. And honestly, it's that second no that mattered. The final answer no. The I'm not going to be moved on this no. The first one he waited out. The second one he understood. Recognized what the moves look like. Recognized the location change. Noticed the excuses. And when you see them, you don't owe them your safety. It doesn't matter how rude saying no feels. Say it anyway. The parking lot. No, never. Like, share, and subscribe.